Designers, I must ask you a question. Are you being transparent in your business? What does that even mean? Cheryl Clendenon, today's guest, is going to tell us her thoughts on this whole matter. Stay tuned. Hey guys, and welcome to Designed by Wingnut Social. I'm your host, Darla Powell, and today's guest, Cheryl Clendenon, is no stranger to the show, although it's been a hot minute since she's been on. You can head over to wingnutsocial.com and Google the little archives there to see her first episode. She's brilliant. I love Cheryl Clendenon. Let me tell you something. Like I said in the show and our interview together, she's a straight shooter. She's going to tell you like it is. She has your back and she wants you to grow your business. And I think that after this conversation, if you're unfamiliar with Cheryl Clendenon, you're going to think the same. Right? But before I get into my combo with Cheryl, you know the drill. Cheryl Clendenon is a well-known designer and writer in the industry and the 2021 Person of the Year from KBB. In Detail Interiors employs 8 people, that's her firm, In Detail Interiors, including a retail boutique showroom, e-commerce, and a candle studio, which sounds divine. Cheryl has been working with designers and architects to change their business strategy since 2017. Cheryl's approach is from a creative stance that is always unapologetically honest. I think you're going to see that. And she is passionate about helping interior designers and creating attainable success for small businesses, which you will also see. Wingnuts, help me in welcoming Cheryl Clendenon to the show. Hey there, Cheryl Clendenon. Welcome back to the show. How the hell are you?
I'm doing good, Darla. It's good to be here with you. I'm really excited to sit down and talk about whatever may come up and get to it. I'm a little nervous. I know that you might throw a zinger in there every now and again, but I am prepared. I am caffeinated. I am got my water. I'm ready to go. So let me
tell you how my mind works. When you said zinger, I was thinking of that little, I think it's Hostess makes them, those little cakes with like the yellow vanilla icing on them.
Yeah, those things will kill you. Those things will kill you.
Yeah, I know. I know. I keep hearing this from my doctor. Okay, so Cheryl, today, by the way, welcome back. It's been too long, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Go ahead and plug that right now.
Yeah. We have actually we've already put it out. It's already released. It was a great episode. It really was. I mean, you sometimes say, "Oh, I'd really love to, have people." Like, oh, I'd love to talk to you for hours. And you're going, not when you get off. But it really was a great episode. It's Damn Good Designer is the podcast. And Darla, I think, might have been a podcast or two. And we're promoting it today on Instagram. So
terrific. I don't know. I think we have it lined up to promote too. If we haven't already, I don't even know what we're doing.
Right. That's the problem is I don't always know. I sometimes just do as I'm told. And that is the honest to God truth.
Same.
Stephanie and Liz control my schedule and my life a lot more than I would like to admit. That's for sure.
Same. My director, Abigail Coots, I'll ask her something and I'll say, of course, I'll defer to you. You tell me what you think about this. And she always wins because, she runs the show. She is my rock. Okay.
And that's what you want.
100%. That is what we want. So today we're talking about kind of a hot button topic, and that is being transparent or quote unquote transparency in your pricing for your interior design business. And you and I both are in the Facebook groups, the interior design Facebook groups. You have your own, which is plug it.
Small business, think big, free Facebook. Good. It's all about business too. We don't get into all the other stuff that other people get into. I try to keep it strictly to business so that people will stay engaged. So it's a really good group, great people.
Yeah. So there's a lot of confusion about transparency in the business and how transparent we are with our clients, with our pricing, our services, our credit card fees, the way we work, and building that relationship and building that trust and that honesty, but not going to the point, I'm assuming, to where you're telling them how much you paid for things. So let's start with that. Let's open up the conversation and tell me to you, what is transparency? And we'll dig in.
To me, it's definitely not, inviting the client into your business office, and letting them know how you run a business. If you're running a business like a business and you're really embracing that, and I think sometimes designers aren't embracing that. They're still in their mind, not really running a real business. Maybe they started out at a time when they were working part-time, and then it grew and it grew, and they still are thinking back to being a part-timer. That's sort of where the small business think big, came from, is because you may be a small business now, but the things you do impact your business quite a bit. So you need to think larger. So transparency to me, Darla, is really more about being very open about what people are going to get, what their deliverables are, what your value is to people, not about your worth. It's about your value to people, and explaining how you charge and why you charge. For example, for us, we do flat fees. I don't go into my formula for determining the flat fee because it's none of their business. And quite frankly, clients don't want to know. They really don't want to know. And I charge hourly for project management. Why do we do that? A client might ask. I'm going to tell them. Why do you do a flat fee? I'm going to tell them why we do flat fees. So we explain all this up front, so there's very little back end issues with people, because they understand it, and they also understand what does out of scope mean? What are construction drawings? What are all these things? They're all very well defined, just like in the law. If you've ever read anything, the Florida statutes and that sort of things. I know you used to live here, and I've read more Florida statutes, and don't forget.
I used to enforce them.
Well, there you go. Exactly. And I'm probably the only person in all of the, states that actually read the PPP bill too back in the day.
I remember that.
Do you remember
were a
that?
wealth of information.
I actually read the whole thing, and that will be like checking the box. I won't be ever doing that again for any kind of law. But I was interested in it, and I read it, and I read about it's like so much BS in there, and really honestly, that's sort of like clients don't want to understand all the BS about it, and these ideas of splitting discounts and sharing things and all that just goes against running an effective and successful business. It really does. There's nothing to me, and this is obviously my opinion, and you're asking me, so my mom says if you ask me my opinion, Darla, that I am allowed to give it. That's what her rule was. But sometimes I gave my opinion, and I wasn't asked, so I got into trouble. But to me, it's about running an effective business, something that is that people can understand, that the client can understand why you're doing what you're doing, but not have these expectations of being able to get a copy of your bills from your vendors or any of that sort of thing. And I think that a lot of designers feel that same way, but there's still a lot of people out there based on these groups that don't feel that way. And I think when people get into trouble with that is because of how they're setting it up to begin with. It's all those steps that go before you're actually, get even on your website, from the very beginning, the very first interaction with that client, you need to be setting the tone for how you work and why you do what you do, and then the value, because really, honestly, let's face it, if the value is there, it really doesn't matter what the price is. If you're communicating that.
I love that you said it's value pricing, right? It's not, and by that, we're not saying it's discounted. It's you bring to the table a certain value for the finished project, the overall design, not based on just the commodity of the hours you put into it by your elbow grease. Right?
Exactly. That's a whole other conversation about flat fees and that sort of thing. And sure, there's times when hourly makes sense, especially like on project management, because we can't control those crazy subs. We can control what's inside of our own team and that kind of thing. And honestly, we don't even, there's certain words that are kind of a joke in my business, in my shop, but yet not a joke, because we don't say the word discount even in our retail store. There's never anything. It's consideration. And if a client needs consideration in a particular way, then you can certainly give them consideration. But I don't use the word discount at all, because I want to train my people not to think that way. It's not so much about the word itself as what it connotes to other people.
Right. I love that. So what are some of the blocks you said, and we see it in the Facebook groups, that designers aren't being transparent and being really nitty gritty about, this is how we charge. This is what you're going to expect for, whether it's the design, it's the project management, it's the shipping, receiving, it's what the furnishings. Is it because they're afraid to dig into that conversation that they're going to turn off the client, or they're afraid to look like they're profitable? I think here's the thing, Darla. I think it's a misnomer to even probably use the word transparency in a way, because it's not transparency doesn't mean you show them everything or you tell them. We don't get into the weeds about even freight.
we roll freight into incoming freight, that is not delivery, but incoming freight into the price, because that's what people are used to. And designers are very fond in these groups of saying, when someone talks about this topic, which is weekly,
Daily.
You're the okay. You said it. I'm the retailer. You're the retailer. Go get them. You're the retailer. You're the retailer. Well, that's great. But I am actually a retailer also, and have been for a long time. And the thing about it is that you're not acting like a retailer when you do all these other things. When you add on a fee for credit card charges, you're not acting like a retailer. When you are, letting people, know the entire cost of goods, meaning there are things that go into your cost of goods. And one of those, according to most states, is your freight. That's a cost of goods. So that is part of the price in my world, as is the credit card fees, which is the controversial thing that comes up, a lot, because a lot of people have different feelings about this. And so some people may be listening going, wait a minute, you're talking about transparency, Cheryl, or you're talking about that. Why are you saying that? It's not, the transparency is not going into the nitty gritty of it. And that's what I want to make clear. It's more so talking about how you do business and putting that value forth. And the price is the price. And that is, we have it on a pen. It's like on a pen. It's not on this pen. This is Vanguard. But it's on. That's how much it's important to me, is that I want to remind people the price is the price. And I think to get to that point, you have to back up a minute and really analyze that word transparency and look at it maybe in a different way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here, is that to me, transparency is not about giving people a line item with every cost that went into that price. It is giving them the price and telling them what the value is for that price. Being competitive, of course, is important, but also, not belaboring all that goes into it, meaning how the sausage is made. That's people, I don't. I really don't want to know. I really don't want to know how much, all the nitty gritty details of a price. And that's why I tell people about the credit card fees, is that
let's dig into that. That's a pet peeve of mine.
And it's a big deal, I think, to a lot of people. And here's my thought on it. Okay, is that it's the part of the cost of doing business. Now, does that? Okay,
100%.
Let's dissect that for a minute before people say, I'm not going to lose money. Really? Well, what about your air conditioning in your building? And what about the payroll? And what do you look at that the same way, that you're losing money? It's because it can be optional, is how people get into this weird mindset. I say, don't make it an optional. If you want to be the retailer, like people are fond of saying, then you need to step up to the plate, be the retailer, and roll it into your price. Do you not think that Publix and Kroger's and, all this, do you think they don't do that? Do you think that's not one of their considerations? You look at your cost of doing business and you say, okay, I've got a certain amount of payroll, and I've got a certain amount of rent, and I got a certain amount of air conditioning I got to pay, and you've got all these things, and that's just one more thing. And then people will say to me, because this, is again a controversial topic.
I know where it's going.
Yeah, they'll say, well, if people don't do it, then I'm charging them more. Yes, you are. And you're making more money. Oh, yay for you. Isn't that awesome? Imagine that. You're in for a profit.
Let me tell you, Cheryl, I've had, we're remodeling our house here and there in Southern Maryland, and I've had some subs come in, or we even had a kitchen contractor come in, and I wanted to pay with credit card, and they charged me an extra 3% and I didn't realize they were going to do that. And I'm just like, why do people do this? Just bake it in to your proposal. Exactly. Bake it in. Assume that can happen, because it just leaves such a bad feeling. It's very off-putting, when you want it
destroys
that
trust.
Should be baked into the cost of doing business. So that's my 2 cents on that. But what do you say?
I totally agree.
And you know what's coming to that designer who's worried about the chargeback piece on that. Because some of the stuff, or most of the stuff that we do, is not $20, $30, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars.
It's true. I think, and I knock on wood, 24 years in business and
Same.
in a big business. I mean, we have a lot of revenue that runs through, and I've never had to worry about that in all these years. And I think that it really is more of an analysis. I think it goes deeper. I think that's symptomatic sometimes about not choosing the right clients and getting people that are a little cray-cray. There's ways that you can talk about that in your contract. There's ways you can't talk about it too, because I actually had somebody try to do that to me. And I said, no, you can't just arbitrarily say that, because you're not my bank and my bank gets to decide that, not you. But I think that there are ways to handle that. And I think that, people have to really understand their business in a certain way to be able to combat that up front with the type of clients that you're talking about. But you certainly can say this, like in our scope of work, we say if there's a problem or there's an issue or whatever, please come back to us. But here's the thing. I've done a lot of research on this, and people think that it's such a common thing, and it is common in general for subscription services and things like that, but it's not as common as one might think. And if you had it happen to you, you're going to think it's very common, right? Because it's like, oh my God, it happened to me. But it's not as common as you think. And it's also, if you have all of your ducks in a row and it's legitimate, they can't just charge back for something that is not legit. Okay. Right. And I've talked to a couple of attorneys about this 6 or 7 months ago. I've talked to somebody at Visa. I'm trying to get them actually on the podcast, this person, but they're trying to, check with their corporate, whatever,
Good idea.
to actually talk about this and talk about ways to prevent chargebacks, because there are ways that you can prevent it. So is it a reality? Yes. But I'm just here to say that, in all these years, and again, I'm like, knocking on marble here, that I haven't had that issue. And I think it's because of the way that we run the business up front and the other kind of transparency we were talking about before, which is making everything so incredibly clear. I've, with coaching designers, over the last 8 years, I have seen so many contracts, and some of them are like this. You're going to pay me $30,000. I'm going to decorate your house. I'm not kidding you. That is actually what an agreement was on that. And I'm like, okay, well, it was actually signed and everything, and it was just like, okay, so this is not good, especially in the state of Florida. You're going to get in trouble for that. If the client gets in trouble. So I think that this is kind of systemic to running a business in a way that prevents these kinds of things happening. And like I said, I think a lot of designers, by the nature of it's a heavily female business, get into it because it's something they can do when they have young kids, and they can work part-time in it, and they can do all that. And then the kids get larger. Yeah, they get larger, but they grow, they get into school more, all these things. And then next thing you know, before you even realize it, you have this really like a business, like, wow, I've got a really good business going on here. And yet you still got all these bad habits from before. And that's sort of my thought, is the small business think big, where you're actually, looking at it as a small business, but you're thinking later on. So yeah, chargebacks are, a potential, issue. I contend that it's going to be less of an issue if you have your business set up and you're running it right, and all of that. And you're vetting your clients, right? If right, you kind of have to see that coming. I will say that when I was doing Darla Powell Interiors, I didn't charge an extra 3% or 4%, but I just didn't accept credit cards for the design fees. That's fine too.
That was just our policy.
Do it for design fee. We don't do it for design fees either, except the initial consultation. We do it for.
Okay. Yes, I did do that. That's true.
Yeah, because it was easy. Pay by square. Boom, and I
$500.
Yeah, exactly. We charge $550 to $650 for initial consult. No design whatsoever, and we're in a tiny little podunk place, and we get it every day. So charge for those initial consults. If you're not doing it. But I think that, we do not for consultation. We're not, if somebody asked us, we might, depending on who it is, but it's not something that we normally accept that. I'm really talking about merchandise. And that is, again, leveling yourself. When you say you want to be the retailer, well, then, you have to act like one. It's the same thing, Darla, really, with when people say, I want to be a retailer, but then the next thing out of their mouth is, another Facebook post down the line is like, oh, I got this sofa in and it was damaged. And, 3 months later, I took it to the client's house and I installed it and I saw the damage, Okay, well, that's not what retailers do, because we're going to know up front if it's damaged and deal with it. You don't let something sit there for 3 months at your receiver without handling it, because then the vendor is also running a real business, and they're going to call party foul on that. Unless it's something that is, that is a defective or something. But those kind of things make me crazy. And then the very next day, someone talks about, oh, we shouldn't show our pricing because, you're effectively working as a retailer. Okay, that's great. That's a great line. But then you actually have to you have to level up to that, right? And be that person. And the other thing with credit card fees I wanted to say is that when people say, I feel bad. And that's not being transparent if you are not, telling the client. Well, but do you go into it and tell them, okay, but this is my rent. Hey, my rent is $2,500 a month, and then I do payroll. Well, Susie over there, she makes like $50,000 a year, and then the one over there makes $30,000 a year. She's part time, and then I have these air conditioning bills. In the summertime, it really gets high. Those air conditioning bills, and do you go into all of that? Do you go into all that? I mean, most people do not, right?
Yeah,
So when you look at it, when you reframe how you think about this, it really is a light bulb going off because you avoid all these problems. And like you said, I feel the same way, that it's just like really stinky, especially in most states, they're supposed to tell you up front. According to Visa, Darla, they're supposed to alert you to that. That is not something that they can just present a bill and say, oh, by the way, here it is. Also, if no one knows this, you cannot charge more than 3% for Visa. Okay, I think MasterCard is at 4%. I don't know that American Express has a limit, but you can, if you are doing this as a line item to your clients, then you cannot charge more than 3% for Visa. And a lot of people don't realize that. I've had some of the designers that I work with go, oh my God, my nail person charges me 4%,
Wow.
And in Colorado, for example, it's 2.9 or 2.7%. Don't quote me on that, but it is even lower in some states like Colorado, and she happened to be in Colorado. And she was like, I know she was getting off that call, lickety split and going back and saying, because a lot of people just smaller companies don't realize that Visa has a lot of rules, and you can lose, you can get into trouble with them, pretty easily by not following, their rules and regulations on it.
I'm glad I baked it in. I was unaware of that.
It's so much easier. It's so much easier.
Speaking to the off-putting part of it, I'm a whiskey enthusiast, and I was at my local liquor store, I guess, to pick up a bottle of Jameson or whatever. And I presented my American Express to pay for it. And he says, do you have another card? Do you have anything else? And he says, usually we charge extra for that. And I think that's my last visit to that store for that. That's how strongly I feel about it.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And it's penny wise and pound foolish. Just people are willing to pay when they see that value, and when they have that, when the value is presented and it's right. And that's why I say some of this, I think, is systemic to running a business like a business and leveling up to the point where you need to be. And I don't blame people for it. Like I said, I think that a lot of times it's just circumstances. And also they hear about it because this is one of those very controversial things. If you look on Instagram when someone talks about it, or when it comes up in these Facebook groups, it is, there's a few people that will say it's cost of doing business, but by and large, people are no. And what I think is that it's not explained well enough what that means. And I think that people probably are not even factoring their costs. They're not understanding their cost to be open and how that affects their fees and how much money they need to bring in and all of that, especially if they're smaller and haven't been smacked upside the head, with the reality.
So it's indicative of a larger problem at the base of running your business for sure. Yeah.
That is what I think about it. And when people say, what if they don't charge? I feel bad because I'm already baked that into it. I'm like, well, do you feel bad when you have 30 days of AC in hot Florida running instead of 31? Do you rebate that one day to somebody? You say, oh well, you're doing this in a day when I have 30 days, so let me give you money back. No, of course you don't. I mean, it's really, this is really a mindset shift, Darla. I think that people aren't always willing to think about, and they get so much support from Facebook groups and Instagram and all that saying, no, just put it on a line item. And then people on the East Coast are more, a lot of people say, well, all the restaurants do it, all the people do it, all that kind of thing. I don't go to places that do that. And that,
same.
I'm like you, I just, give me the price, and then I'm going to decide, is this value there? Is this meal good enough for me to pay $50 for or not? And then I'm going to hand over my credit card or not. It's really simple. And I think that that's the simplification of it is really better. But it also, in our business, there's not as much trust going on in a restaurant. You're not building some of you are building a long-term relationship, but in our business, it's such an easy way to end that, to erode that trust. And here's the thing. You cannot recover from that. Once you have lost that trust with a client, right? You just can't, you can't recover from it.
That was true. That was a first person testimonial right here. I just did not, it set off a bad tone, and I was not that receptive to the rest of the services going forward. I mean, there were other things also in play, but that was just one that I was like, gosh, why did my wife will say, will you stop about this already? I'm like, just bake it into the business, bake it into the,
you really do want to shake people sometimes because it is so, this is a great rabbit hole for Cheryl to go down if I see these comments, because then I'm like, Cheryl, you have a lot of work to do. You cannot respond to that. You cannot respond to that. Just walk away. Just close
Speaking
the
of
phone,
responding, right. Speaking of responding to that, I'm going to get over to the other hot button topic when it comes to this, which is sharing your discounts. Or you have, this is something I see almost on a daily basis, where Susan McNuggets goes to a client and the client says, will you share your discount with us? Where, what are your margins? That kind of questioning is just maddening to me. And of course, everyone says you don't go into Publix and ask them how much they paid for the Debbie cakes. How much profit are they making? But we as interior designers, for some reason, I don't know if this is historical, you've been a designer a lot longer than I have, are struggling still with this topic. And I am dying to know your take. All right, you guys know, or at least I hope you know, or if you don't, I'm not doing my job, that we do full service social media management for you guys, interior designers, architects, and to the trade vendors or furnishing manufacturers, etc. But we are excited to announce our very new hybrid plan with Wingnut Social. It's kind of a half done for you, half you do it yourself sweet spot. If you're a beginning designer or a firm who's just really kind of getting started in social media marketing, but don't quite have the marketing budget to delegate it to a marketing firm, because that's a pretty decent size investment, right? This is our hybrid solution, and it's perfect for busy designers who the power of consistent professional content on Instagram. You've heard guest after guest and client after client say how they're getting leads from Instagram, right? But you have that overwhelm. You have no idea what to post, when to post, what the hashtags and captions should look like for a value proposition, a mix in order to reach your ideal client. Well, ta-da! Introducing the hybrid plan with Wingnut Social. You get a monthly content calendar where we create the content for you and you post at your leisure on your own time with our guidance. We're doing the posts, we're doing feed posts, we're editing reels for you. You get 8 feed posts, 2 reels. We're writing the captions for you. We are researching the hashtags for you that drive engagement with guidance, best practices, and quarterly strategy sessions to make sure that your strategy and everything is in alignment with your business goals. So if you want to find out some more information on our amazing hybrid plan, it's been very popular so far. Head on over to wingnutsocial.com and hit up that Let's Chat button, and let's see how we can work together. Again, that's wingnutsocial.com.
Well, my take is that we don't even use the word discount, so that gives you a clue right there that that word is forbidden. It's consideration if it's something that we're trying to, if it's this, bench that I bought at Market when I was having too many, Mai Tais on the 6th floor or whatever, on that day that they have the Mai Tai day, which is really a good day, or too many of those sangrias and Eastern accents or whatever, and I've got I'll take 3 of those. That looks good. Okay, so I'm not telling the client or the customer, in that case in the store that I'm, we really want to get rid of this because Cheryl was, maybe she had, drank a glass of wine or 2 more and bought, 2 of these. We're not going to say it that way, obviously, because, we're better salespeople, but that is when consideration might come into it in my retail store. But overall with that, I think that it's craziness because you're opening up people to really think about this more when you really want them focused on the creative vision. So to me, the price is the price. Let's talk about the transformation. Let's talk about the creative vision. This is what I'm going to deliver for you. This is the transformation I am promising you for X price. It's no different than if you go into a store and you try on this beautiful outfit and you love it. You love it for $100. You love it for $200. You love it for $300. But getting up to $400, I don't know if I love it that much. I'm just starting to, so it's the value there for me is up to a gradation, and it's certainly the same for a client. So your goal is to really be able to sell that value, and how you do that is really figure out the hot points. If the gal at the store comes in and says, "My God, you look like you are 22 years old and weigh 108 pounds," all of a sudden that value in that dress has gotten a little bit more for me. I might go up to 450, it's all about how you're positioning this. And so this is a big deal to me, Darla, is how people are positioning their business. And I think that's where people kind of go wrong, because they don't realize these everyday things like discount, is something that is not positioning them as a firm that charges $185 an hour, or that is, wants you to spend $100,000 of furniture with them, or whatever. It's that, there's a disconnect there, on some of this. So I'm absolutely against any of that. I've never done it. Even at the very beginning when I didn't know, Jack from Jack, I didn't do anything like that because it was illogical to me. And I'm almost like a little on the spectrum with logic. Yeah, it makes no sense to me. Right?
So let's backtrack on that a little bit. So, Mr. Client says, what is your margins? You're sharing your discounts. And are we getting back to the fundamental basis of this is how we choose our clients that maybe aren't a best fit? If someone is saying something like that, can we have the conversation with them and educate them to this is how we do business and still work through them? Or are we, this is another conversation. Red flag, red flag, red flag.
Right. And you know how I feel about that word too. It's I don't even let people say it in my group. Joking, but not really, because I don't think people should be labeled that way because they don't understand, or a client doesn't understand the contract, or they don't, those kinds of things. But I think that it's not for me. I'm not. First of all, let me just be the truthful. This is the honest to God truth, and I don't even know how to lie because I wouldn't be able to keep track of them. So I'm just telling you the truth. Is that we don't have clients that say ask us things like that. And I am firmly a believer, and that's the truth. You can get off the phone right now and call Liz and ask her, just randomly ask her, because she doesn't lie either. And we don't get people to ask about things like that. And I think a big part of that is how we position, again, right from the beginning, on the website, the discovery call, the email that we send out every single time after the discovery call. It is a religion with us that this email go out, and it outlines our minimum expenditure, how we work, not the minimum expenditure, because that's in the scope after we meet with them, but it outlines the how we work, with a flat fee, project management, hourly, minimum expenditure, yada, yada, all the things that Liz has talked to them about on the discovery call. So I think that it goes back to that. If somebody asked about that, then I would probably have, knowing me, a little smart here, I probably would say, I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean discount? We don't get it. I mean, what? And I would be very perplexed and be like, well, let's see now, discount. What does that mean exactly? Because I'm a wholesaler. I'm your retailer, whether we are technically a retailer, but you know what? 9 out of 10 of our clients have never been in our store. Okay. I mean, first, they come later, but sure. We don't get the leads from the store, in other words. And so I would say I would be kind of a little bit, I don't understand what that means, because that's not how it works. And I would for sure educate them, but I wouldn't start gnashing my teeth and wring my hands and be, oh my God, red flag, red flag. I wouldn't do that, because I think that some people, especially in larger markets, may have that perception because that particular market has fed into it. This is one of the reasons why it's good to talk about these things so that people understand, especially when they're newer. Because I think this happens more with newer designers than people that have been around the block a few times.
Sure.
And some people really, and there's in other countries, there's somebody in Australia that promotes this big time and has a big audience. And every time I hear about it, it's like a dagger in my heart, because I think it's so disingenuous for our business in general. And I'm not saying that people don't, that we're trying to cheat people or do whatever or something like that. It's just not a discount. Also, Darla, I think this is more reflective maybe in retail, when people are doing retail and we don't, I haven't been in a Crate and Barrel or a Pottery Barn or any of those kind of things in probably 30 years. I mean, it's not,
sure.
we don't work that way. And again, we make it clear. So maybe that's part of it too, is that we're not, if we're going to do something that we call an edit where it's not full service, then it's going to be, here's our concepts, here's our ideas. Now, you're on your own to implement. So I think it's really it starts with defining your business and the kind of business you want to run, and then backing into what that positioning is. But here's my contention is that a lot of people make mistakes based on the fact that they are inadvertent mistakes, like mindset mistakes. Like sometimes when I'm talking to my designers that I'm coaching or something, I see the light, I literally see the light bulb. There it is, right over their head, and they're like, I never thought about it that way. And once they start thinking about it that way, then they're really, this push to selling the value is so much more important to them. And it kind of follows suit, if that makes sense, but
it does.
But I'm totally against doing that, to answer your question along about.
Let me throw a little wrinkle at you, a little wrench at you. So newer designers.
I knew it.
Yeah. Newer designers who aren't at your level, right? Who maybe don't have relationships with vendors to the stocking dealer levels, or and I'm sure in your case, probably even better, are going to say, well, Cheryl, that's easy for you to say because you can make the markup to be competitive, which we mentioned before with our pricing. You don't have to worry about that. You have plenty of wiggle room to bake in the shipping, receiving, the credit card fees, because you're big, right? You get really good wholesale value for your stuff, where a lot of the interior designers, if we're going to High Point, you can see the difference between the designer pricing and the stocking dealer pricing. So, and what advice do you have for those designers to sell the value if competitive for them is a lot harder, right? The margins there are very sketchy.
Well, you're selling the value for your creative vision. Not so much the furniture themselves. Obviously you want to sell the value there too, but here I've got a really good solution to that is you get into a trade. We have a trade program. We don't have a ton of lines, but we have, quite a few, and we're by all intents, by people that review us and the trade program, it's really good. Jeannie Chung has a great trade program in Southern California. There's other, places. Some of them have gotten, there's been issues with one in particular recently. So you want to know who you're getting into bed with, so to speak. And it's true. And I'm like really easy to find. You can Google me for like about 30 pages and, you can come visit my store. And same thing with Jeannie. So sometimes working with, people like us, as long as you know that they're well capitalized and they're a strong business and you do your homework, because you should before you give your money to anybody. I want you to vet me out all day long, because that's important to do that. But that is where you can get it. And here's the other thing is that when you don't have the overhead that I have, your margins don't need to be as good. So I think part of this goes back to people wanting to be that retailer. Well, to really get the best stocking dealer pricing, you have to pay to play, meaning you need to invest in that line. Okay. Yeah. So when designers, and this happens a lot, and there you talk about a hot button, because I'm sitting here with $200,000 worth of inventory here, to get those kinds of pricing and that sort of thing. Sure. But even before, the retail was open to the public, we still ran it the same way. And I think that sometimes the expectations you have getting into the business is not that you're going to make. You don't need to make the same margins I make, because you don't have the same payroll. You don't have all of those things. Sure, you want to make a lot of money, but let's be realistic. Build into that, grow into that, but also put more eggs in fewer baskets. So when you go to market, any of the markets, really invest in knowing those lines. It took me a year before I really settled on the lines I want, because I started in the kitchen and bath world and remodels and all that. So when I started really selling product, I really paid a lot of attention to the lines that I wanted to have long-term relationships with, and I wanted to invest in, to have their fabrics, to have their samples of their woods and all those kinds of things. So more eggs and fewer baskets, trade programs that are authorized trade programs, or trade programs that are good. And you will, and I will tell you, like for us, Miranda ever so often, maybe once a quarter, runs like a little competitive analysis. Because I say to her, I don't want a line on our trade program if designers can't make at least 30%. Okay. If they can't make that, then I don't want it on the line. So I have her shop it. I'm not saying that some bizarro place in Peoria might have it, there's one-offs like that, and they're usually violating terms and conditions and that sort of thing. But I think that is part of it, is not to be expecting all of that. The other thing is again, this is all about running a business, Darla, because a lot of people pay way more than they need to for receiving and all of that. They don't know how to compartmentalize freight. They don't know how to get the best freight. They're just taking whatever the vendor says the freight's going to be 25%. Not my world, So there's ways to, and it's not because of my volume. It's because I have an account with a freight company that delivers. Okay. So there's all these other things that kind of dovetail into it, and it all gets back to, running a sustainable business for the long haul and analyzing all these things, because you do have to analyze religiously your freight. And if we have a line, which we have right now, that has really been upping the freight, we dig into it. Why is this so expensive? What's happening? Well, we did a little digging, and it turns out that some of these products are coming from a different warehouse, and they let us know what those product collections were. And then so they couldn't be combined. Okay. And then some of them were coming over here, and so we got the intel. So now I'm able to craft a workaround for that when we want to use that product, that it's not going to cost so much in freight. But this is all part of the business, is learning how to do this, and also to push back a little bit, on vendors. And if you're coming in with a $50,000 order, you got some power. Okay. Especially right now, you got some power. And so you need to be able to leverage that. And I think that there's so much to this topic, but it is all goes back to how you want to be perceived as a business too. Do you want to be perceived as a business that goes around getting discounts, and that's how you get business? Because that's what the Australian thing was about. It was like, okay, well, I want to give my clients like this great deal and everything. Really? I want to give them great value, and I want to make all their dreams come true. I want to be the Disneyland of them. That's what and when you focus on that and you have that, it's up in front of you, literally saying, okay, I am going to be, this, I'm going to be indispensable to my client. Then you know what? A lot of this just miraculously goes away. Because don't you go to certain places and do business with them?
Absolutely.
And damn well that you could go across the street or order on Amazon for less, but you don't.
100%. Yes. 100%. Yep.
And more importantly than ever, how important it is, Darla, right? In our world today, how important are those relationships? I mean,
it's everything. The relationship, from marketing, the relationship building, the storytelling, the building that know, like, and trust, and keeping the clients and keeping them happy and making them feel like they had a terrific experience and they were taken care of. And people in our line of work, whether it's interior design or marketing or high-end, anything high-end, which we are for marketing, right, is they want to feel taken care of, and they want to not have any problems, right? So they don't want to be your ideal client. Sans the education piece, maybe they can be educated. Not everybody knows what it's like to work with us. Doesn't want discounts. They don't want that kind of. They don't want to go to Walmart, right? they want the experience. They want the high end thing, and that builds loyalty. They'll return, and you'll get great results for them.
Absolutely.
And you give them I just think it's so important.
Yeah, and you give them back the most important commodity, which is time. Yeah. Okay, and time for me,
I can't buy it.
You really can't. And sometimes, again, kind of ironic to me that designers will be like, the client wants they want the lowest price on this. Okay. I mean, I generally want the lowest price on things too. It's not like, but I'm not going to forego like a great relationship or something like that for it. But I mean, I think it's human nature that, but then that same designer or architect or whomever will then want everything else for free. They want free stuff from you. Like, I want the greatest Instagram ever. I want my social media to be rock and rolling. Oh, you mean I have to pay you for that? Ideas, and everything. And that's that. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to piss anybody off. I'm just saying that the truth is sometimes we have to look at the man in the mirror and say, hey, maybe I'm complicit in my own outcomes, in my own problems. And I think that, it's the same thing, because you run a business and I run a business. I have multiple businesses, but one of them is, is a business strategist, coach, whatever you want to call it. I hate that word coach, but whatever. And you're doing what you do. And so, doesn't it just kind of make you chuckle when people, they don't want to pay $99 for something or $100 or whatever. They want their business to be better, and I want to make a lot more money. Oh, but you know what? I just think I'll just look for all the free stuff, or I'm going to expect the free stuff to make it. But yet then they turn around and get mad at their clients for doing the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, we have experience that we don't get that so much now because I've learned as, I've owned the business and my positioning and the value that we offer for our pricing, of course. But back in the day, yeah. And every now and then I'll get someone like that, but that don't want to invest.
Right.
In
I just
the
see it in the
business or
groups.
they expect it. Yeah.
I see the comments in the groups and stuff in the Instagram and, just comments in general that people are like, well, I don't, that's just too expensive for me. Okay. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what? That's not for me, it's not my ideal client. If I can't convince them of the value that I'm going to be able to bring to the party, and the same thing for you.
Exactly.
But sometimes it's a little ironic that,
don't you think?
It's, don't you think? It's just a little ironic, in that. And
a little too ironic.
Yeah, a little too ironic. Okay, don't
I really
start
do
on that.
think
that'll get into my head, and I won't be able to work the rest of the day. But I think that people need to have that win-win. That win-win with the clients. The client needs to think they got the best thing ever, and you need to think that you've got the best client ever.
Yeah, I love that. That's always the best relationship.
Yeah.
Well, Cheryl Clendenon, of course, I could talk to you for hours about this. I think you're brilliant. And I think anyone who is struggling with any of this in their business would be ridiculously silly not to seek you out and seek out your coaching, which you love that word, services, because I can't imagine you don't make an incredible difference for business owners. You're tremendous.
I like to think so, but
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So now I have to ask you, are you ready?
Okay.
I'm
ready. I'm ready. I am prepared.
What would the hashtag on your tombstone be?
Okay. She showed up. That's it.
Like
That's been my hashtag for a long time because I think just showing up, somebody said that 80% of success is just showing up, or I think maybe it might have been Woody Allen, which I'm not a fan of, but still it was a great quote. So she showed up. That's what I want.
Yep. That is really half the battle. It really is. Okay. Really is. You're stuck on a deserted island, but you can have one favorite food, your favorite food forever. What is it?
This was a really tough one because I have a lot of favorite foods because I love to eat, but I think it would be watermelon because watermelon is so good for you.
It is.
It is really good for
potassium.
You. Yes. And something else begins with a C that I can never pronounce that my dad likes to remind me about, but watermelon is much better for you than people even realize. It's not just water. It's
good for your kidneys, I know.
Yes,
I think I've read that.
And water is and water is the secret of life. So any way you can and longevity and all of that, I'm very much convinced of that. There, I've got my big water bottle here and trying to force myself to drink more water all the time. But so I think watermelon just helps with that. It's a little tastier when you get tired
with salt or without salt.
Absolutely with salt. I'm from Texas.
Right?
I'm from Texas. Texans for sure put salt on it. Yeah.
I love salt. Okay. Last but not least, please recommend a book that's impacted you on a professional or personal level.
Okay. I read a lot. I read all the time. I'm an avid reader. I'd probably rather read than go to a party most of the time. But
Same.
One of the books that I will tell you that I thought about this is not a business book. Let's divert because everyone knows me. I'm business all the time, but it's a book called Come Back. And it's by Mia and Claire Fontaine.
I was saying Mia Farrow.
No, Mia Farrow. I said Woody Allen, and then the squirrel ran across and put that together. But Mia and Claire Fontaine. It's a mother-daughter, and it's kind of weird because the book is about doing her taking her daughter to someplace to get her off drugs, so she kind of kidnapped her daughter to do this. She was a writer in Los Angeles and she did all this, but that's not really all the story. Okay. It's really not all the story. It is really about looking at your complicity, what it is that you're doing inadvertently and your expectations of other people and how those expectations of other people sometimes can really be harmful, not just to them, but to you. Like, when you're the nice person and everyone conceives you as a nice person, and that they don't say that about me, by the way. But it's probably say, hey, you're the nice one. And then it's like, really, if you think about it, sometimes you're getting something out of that by the behavior that you exhibit to be considered that nice person. But I'm just saying that overall, and I had 2 daughters when I read it, and neither one of them had ever a drug problem or anything like that. It's not about that. And it goes back and forth from their 2 views. But every single person, Darla, that I have recommended this to has sought me out to tell me how much they liked the book. So
what was the title again?
It's Come Back.
Just Come Back by not Mia Farrow.
Not Mia Farrow.
That could be a different book entirely.
Mia and Claire Fontaine. It's an older book because my kids were probably middle school when I read it, and I don't even remember why. Someone probably referred it to me because that's where I get a lot of those kind of book recommendations. But I will tell you, even if you don't have kids, even if it's not the drug thing of it, it's just really good. And they've had a couple of other ones since then, but I haven't read those because I don't have time because I'm in
awesome.
business books.
I'm definitely going to check it out. That sounds amazing.
Do it.
Cheryl Clendenon, please tell the listeners where they can go to find out more about you and all the things, and we'll call it a day.
Okay, good. The interior design paradigm.com is where we have most of our coaching, but you can also find it by damngooddesigner.com, which is our little fun way of having the umbrella, thing. So you can go to damngooddesigner.com or the interior design paradigm.com. Small Business Think Big is a great way to get to know me. And if you're brave and want to get in there, it's a really good group with a lot of great people and good advice on business and that sort of thing. And that's it. And our Instagram is Damn Good Designer also. Yeah,
and what you see is what you get, folks. You talk about a straight shooter here. Cheryl will do right by you for sure.
I'm not sweet, but I'm very much on your side. That's the 100%. Thing that a lot of the designers say, that I'm really on your side. Really, at this point in my career, I am more excited about someone texting me and saying, I just got my first $40,000 fee and $200,000 minimum spend than I am about the award that we're going to get in a few weeks, which maybe I'll see
congrats.
You there at IDS.
Oh, I'm actually not going to be there physically in person. No, that was just a digital thing. Actually, when they reached out to me to judge that, we're talking about the IDS Interior Design Awards. Yeah. There wasn't even a mention of, hey, do you want to actually physically go to the thing? So,
well, it's Santa Fe. So I'm thinking Libby and I are going and going to have a great little trip and see my family in Dallas and all that.
It does sound fun.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
It does sound fun. Cheryl Clendenon, thank you so much for joining us. You're brilliant. I love having you on the show. It's been too long, like I said. We'll have to do this again sooner.
Yes. Thank you, Darla. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so our conversation was a little overwhelming, right? If you're a newer designer, especially, your head might be swimming with some of the things that we talked about. You might not even agree with some of the things that we talked about, but I agree with some of the things that we talked about because I know Cheryl knows her stuff. And from experience, I have experienced from owning my own business and charging the way I do and being a consumer of and knowing what that feels like, where people charging the way they do. This could have been a 17 billion hour show. In the interest of time, of course, it was not. So if you want to pick Cheryl's brain, head on over to the interior design paradigm.com or check out Cheryl Clendenon, Damn Good Designer. You will get there. Damn Good Designer on Instagram. Seriously, the best investment I think you could make in your business from a business coaching, mentoring kind of standpoint, especially if you are lost in the sauce. A reminder, Wingnut Social is sponsored, or I should say designed by Wingnut Social, is sponsored by the marketing agency Wingnut Social, which is my company. We are a digital marketing agency for interior designers and home pros, right? That home design space, vendors, architects, to the trade, interior designers, interior design business coaches, Cheryl Keys Clendenon. So head on over to wingnutsocial.com, see how we can help you with your business, your marketing, and your positioning to get you out there so people aren't asking you for discounts. That is it for today, guys. Remember, until next time, get out there, get uncomfortable, and be great.